you for August and September while we get Mason on the horn here.
Okay, sure. We hold these things every month. Right now it's the third Saturday. I wonder what we're going to do in November and December, but our intent is to discuss major topics affecting aspects of the Bay Area and sustainability, housing, infrastructure, finance, and transportation, hence our name. Next month in August, we're going to have a speaker on to talk about one of the factors that's pushing cities over the fiscal cliff. And I think you're going to find that compelling. The second, the next meeting in September, I think we're going to talk about reforming Bay Area transit, and that isn't final, but we do have a transit tax coming up, and the real issue isn't just the tax for $1 billion a year; it's the $500 billion that the transit industrial complex wants to spend over the next 25 years. So I think the broader context is what should we be doing in transit, but we'll post those details later. Somebody has asked for captions for the meeting. Gina, do you think I should turn that on?
Some people are hearing impaired, language impaired, so I'm okay with it if you guys are.
I turned them on. You can let me know later if I should turn them off.
Okay, and Mason has joined the meeting.
Awesome. Great.
Okay, then, well, great.
Let's go ahead and get started. So welcome everyone to our July meeting of Shift Bay Area. Shift is a nonpartisan policy advocacy group focused on regional issues in the Bay Area under the umbrellas of sustainability and housing, infrastructure, finance, and transportation. So last month we had a transportation focused seminar. This week is on the finance side. There are going to be a number of things that will be hitting your pocketbook potentially pretty hard on the ballot. And so we've got a wonderful speaker here today, Mason, to tell us a little bit about some of those things that are going to be on the ballot on the finance side. So with that, I'll turn it over to Gina to introduce Mason, and we got a good one here for you today. So I think you're gonna learn a lot. Go ahead, Gina. You're muted.
Hi. So Mason is a California public affairs strategist. He has been working with the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association as well as the Anti-Billionaires Tax. He's the co-founder of an extremely powerful podcast, State of Gold. And I'll just let Mason start his presentation because he's got a lot to say to us today. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much. And by the way, can you hear me okay? Quick sound check. My AirPods, sometimes they bless me and sometimes they curse me.
Yeah,
fantastic. Fantastic. I'm here in San Francisco. I'm driving my kids around as per most Saturday mornings. So, please, I apologize for any background noise. As Gina and Gus set it up perfectly, we have such a loaded ballot this November, and especially on the finance side, there are measures on the ballot that I think are just emblematic of a lot of the challenges that I think we face as the state and the two directions that we could potentially go. I will speak on them both very quickly. And, I have a deck that I will share with everybody. I intended to present it today, and we got caught up in some morning errands here. The first is the Billionaire's Tax, and many of you are well aware of this. It has been covered at length in the media. And in essence, this creates a new tax regime that would it would force every Californian to swear on the Holy Bible, their entire net worth, global net worth. And as written, the tax would impose a one-time 5% tax on anybody with assets over $1 billion. But this measure also gives the legislature the ability to change the threshold at any minute, in terms of who this would impact. And so, in addition, so it creates this new threshold. We've estimated that already $1 trillion in tax in wealth has already left the state. So this has already had real revenue impacts on our local governments, on our state governments, especially when you consider the fact that we, as a state, depend a disproportionate amount on the wealthy. They pay over 40% of our income tax. And so, look, this is a Trojan horse, the wealth tax. It has already caused a lot of our investment, our innovators, the people who invest in our startup economy to flee the state. And this has a direct ripple on effect, especially here in the Bay Area, where we are so dependent on startups. So that's the wealth tax. But by the way, I will just add, Governor Newsom has come out against this. Matt Mahan has come out against this. The California Teachers Association has come out against the wealth tax. So this is not just the typical anti-tax groups. These are people who see that this is badly written and this is going to have a devastating effect on the California economy. Second, I want to address the Local Taxpayer Protection Act. This was put on the ballot by the California voters. They met an extraordinary signature gathering threshold to be able to put this question to taxpayers. It was negotiated to scale it back a bit and due to a legislative compromise. Originally, this would have retroactively rolled back any special tax increase that had been passed by just simple majority vote. And what this now does is it requires any future special taxes placed on the ballot by city councils to pass by a 2/3 vote. So that means that special taxes on the sale of property, special sales taxes just intending to go towards one pet cause, those could still be passed, but they would need a 2/3 vote. And in essence, really protects the essence of Prop 13, which has really been eroded left and right by localities that have passed these property transfer taxes, called them mansion taxes, what have you, which have really just caused the real estate market to freeze. It delays the transfer of property, which is really the only way that local governments can raise more revenue. So, look, there's been, again, bipartisan support to this initiative. Local chambers of commerce, almost every major taxpayer organization has come out in support of this, because until California gets its spending under control, we have to at least tap the brakes and make it more difficult to pass these tax increases, because the budget difficulties that our elected officials face, they're just not. There's no end in sight, and so I'll take a pause there. Again, I apologize for my kids screaming in the background, but happy to take any questions that you might have about any of these two measures.
Awesome. All right, let's see. Do we have any questions in the chat? Let me take a quick look here. While I'm looking in the chat, if anybody has questions that are not in the chat, want to raise their hand, also call on people.
I'm assuming the numbers have already been assigned is that correct?
Oh,
For the propositions.
The proposition numbers?
Yeah.
Yes, they have been assigned. And I'm just blanking on the final name. I will send it. We'll send it all in a recap. So it's very clear. But yes, these have all been assigned. It had the Safe Prop 13 had a different one coming out of the legislative compromise. I just don't want to give you the wrong one here.
I know the Save Prop 13 is 43.
43. Okay. Yeah, like I said, we'll go through this in October.
And Proposition 40 is the billionaire's tax. So we are opposing that and supporting Proposition 43.
So no on 40, yes on 43 is the theme.
Yes. Yeah, and we'll review that in October when we do this meeting. So if everybody has their ballot in hand, we'll run through that and give our recommendations.
Has anybody here actually participated in writing the ballot argument for or against?
I think maybe
I've done that on the local level, but I've never done it on the state level.
Yeah, I think Mark Joffe's been involved in that. Greg, go ahead.
Good.
My question is to the audience as well as Mason. It's pretty clear that wealth inequality and income inequality are the highest they've been in over a century. I know the income tax came out in like 1917. Income inequality is higher than it's ever been, and wealth inequality is reported by a lot of sites as being larger. And I know there's a lot of anger and frustration with this inequality in our society. So my question is, what else could be done, given that the very wealthy are, as Mason says, paying 40% of the taxes, to try and rectify this problem if it isn't a billionaire's tax? I think people would like to hear what other alternatives should be proposed so that they feel better about rejecting this one. And as you point out, it's already failed. We've lost at least 6 billionaires already have moved out of state just on the threat of this thing from the SEIU union, if I remember correctly. So I welcome some thoughts on that.
And real quick, and I'll just share that exactly for the reasons you mentioned. I mean, hey, look, we all know this wealth inequality. This is an issue. This one state go it alone strategy is a poor way of going about it, because again, as long as these other states are going to be kinder to their billionaires, it's the most mobile class of the society, so they're the most mobile. What Governor Newsom has said, and he's come out in favor of a national billionaires tax. We have, no, like, I don't know, how you feel about that. People feel differently, but if we are going to impose any sort of like billionaire tax, it really needs to be done at a national level, because state by state, these folks could go to, another location. So that's one solution that Newsom and Ro Khanna have put out there, and so the other folks have really echoed similar arguments that, hey, look, the California CTA, for instance, has said, look, this billionaire tax as written, all of the proceeds will go to healthcare. The designee is already sort of explicitly stated in the ballot language. And so, this goes against what California voters have said they want in terms of prioritizing education. So there's all kinds of reasons why this specific framing doesn't quite meet the needs of California. But that's really just 2 points there, Greg.
Awesome. I see Mari's got her hand up.
Yeah, I have two questions. One is, which is the tax 43 that you support? I hadn't heard about that one. And also, how do people feel about a flat tax for Social Security as opposed to the cap on the amount of income that's taxable? But can anybody at least talk about 43? What you support about 33?
43. Yeah, so 43 is the safe Prop 13.
Mason is muted or frozen. There he is.
Well, no, I'm happy to take that on. This was put on the ballot because essentially property transfer taxes, which are just one example, they place a massive on the sale of property, and they've been called, mansion taxes in some places. What it's really served to do is freeze the real estate market. So fewer properties are changing hands. There's fewer real estate investment, and this is, in the middle of a housing crisis. So, just the property transfer tax issue alone, if you support housing, housing prices, and you already think property taxes, are too high and out of control, these local property transfer taxes have really just become a backdoor for local governments in most cases to just extract more revenue out of the asset holder and out of the sale. It's one of the reasons why realtors are really supporting this as well. This has really frozen the real estate market in places like LA, where this was just recently done a couple years ago. Again, this isn't eliminating the ability of local governments to place these special taxes on the measure. They of course can place general taxes, on the ballot, but this makes it, just raises the threshold to 2/3, which has been the traditional sort of threshold for tax increases here in California. And it restores that protection that Prop 13 provided to taxpayers, that set a cap on the degree to which their taxes can be raised. If you put a one-time tax on the sale of a home and it's a massive tax, and it's it's very it's progressive in all of these cities. It essentially is just a direct attack on Prop 13. So this was really written in a way to restore the intent of Prop 13 and give some control back to the voters in the face of these kind of rampant increases in taxes. It's been the equivalent of millions and millions of dollars that have been tacked onto the sale of property across California. That's just property. That's not even special sales taxes. By the way, this would not impact, the BART tax on the ballot at all in November. I know that people feel differently about that and have different opinions on it. The passage of this would not, affect that BART sales tax from going into effect, even though many of us are against that also. So just putting that out there.
What about my question about the flat tax for the Social Security? Is that like under consideration?
That doesn't have anything to do with the billionaire tax, either 40 or 43. So I'll let you guys debate that sort of internally, but this isn't really touching Social Security.
Okay, thank you. You did mention national, so that's a national tax. Thank you.
Got it. Yeah. Well, the idea that we need a national solution to this versus just a state by state is really what I was trying to kind of emphasize.
Yeah, the national tax issues, I think, are a little out of scope for this organization. Let's go to Gina and then Greg.
So actually, the sponsor of the billionaires tax is SEIU. And I think the scary part of this tax is that right now they're directing it to healthcare. Later on, they can come up with another tax and direct it to another portion and another portion and another portion. And I think, unfortunately, it's because of pensions, unfunded pensions, unions, etc. Maybe you can speak to that a little bit, Mason, as well as people, they're using division. Right. And there's the giving pledge by the billionaires where they're donating more than 50% of their net wealth and even more than that. So I believe it's better that the billionaires have the money and they're donating it to causes rather than government taking money with an insatiable appetite.
Yep.
If you can comment on those two.
Yeah, you're so right. And by the way, I didn't even get into the idea that this is a tax essentially also on unrealized gains. So everybody will be required to state their net assets as stated on paper. But as someone who works in startups and has done so for the past over a decade or so, I can tell you that paper, what your worth is on paper, is totally different than what it's actually worth. And so anybody who's working at a company that is valued as a unicorn, if you're the founder and you're on the cap table of that company, why would anybody ever start a company here in California? And I think your point about how billionaires, how they really contribute, and I think it's absolutely right on. And let's not mention the fact that it's the billionaires who really fund a lot of these major manufacturers. I mean, look, there was just a decision yesterday, 2 days ago. Saronic, major manufacturer, they were going to locate a $3.2 billion manufacturing plant in California. They instead opted for Texas because California just doesn't even make it, doesn't even allow them the ability to be in the hunt. Why would any, multi-billion-dollar corporation expand its presence in a state like California that's even negotiating or debating something like this on the ballot? So, this is really existential, and I think it, your questions touch on it perfectly, Gina.
Greg?
Yeah, I want to just echo two things. What Mason just said. I know people who have taken their businesses to Texas. Right, I've met them in person, talked to them, and it just they can't do business here. It's hard to attract employees. The taxes are ridiculous compared to other states. But I want to just punctuate one of the things Mason has talked about. If the housing market freezes and properties don't turn over, then they don't get reassessed at the higher value. And Prop 13 allows the tax on the last value the property was sold on. So we want properties to turn over because that's a natural way that Prop 13 allowed the taxes to go up. And so that's why the freezing by these transfer taxes is important. It's preventing the government from getting revenue that it otherwise could. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you, Greg.
Absolutely right on. That's and like I said, there were this measure was scaled back a bit in the legislative compromise. It originally was going to repeal any local transfer tax that had been passed in the past 10 years that hadn't met that 2/3 requirement. So originally this was automatically just going to repeal those. Now we'll need a more manual process to repeal those. So this is really a compromise measure where we're just saying going forward, you need 2/3 to be able to, place these mansion taxes on the ballot, which have had a really bad effect on Prop 13 and the, real raising of revenue.
Awesome. Hey, Tom Rubin, you put a pretty thoughtful note in the chat, but it might be worth kind of telling that aloud if you're still around. See where you went. Oh, there you are. You want to just like give us a quick summary of what you put in the chat, and then we'll go to Gina.
Okay. Again, I'm against the billionaire's tax for all the reasons that have already been mentioned. But let me just tell you, as an accountant who has been on both sides, government and private sector, for a long time, the implementation of this and the potential for abuse is going to be extraordinary. And I was just starting to list some of the problems that will come up. For example, we have had in this nation over many, many decades some special taxes of classes of stock where the original owners, the entrepreneurs that formed them, got special voting rights. So they can sell off part of the company, but still have more votes so they can control it. What is the value of that? Okay, we can say go to the stock market and there's the price of the stock, but you got to believe that the price of being able to control that special voting right is worth a premium. How do you evaluate it? How do you value it if the special voting power goes away if it's sold outside the group? Do you value it at what it's worth if it's held or if it's sold? Then we have a lot of private wealth where there is no ready market. Even the stock market, everybody says, gee, you can go to the stock market and get to what it's worth. Well, yes, but even there are huge, huge problems that can come up, and I'm not going to go into all of those right now. But what if it's privately held? Trying to value a private company is a huge, huge difficulty. It happens in estates all the time whenever there's a sale. And guess what? The buyers and sellers often don't agree precisely. Do you think it's going to be any different between somebody who's trying to tax something and somebody who's being taxed on it? They might not agree. Now, remember, the folks with the money have a lot of money and they can afford attorneys. At the very least, litigation could go on forever. Now, let's take some other types of assets, such as land. Okay, there are people who have a lot of land in California, and some of it is used for business of a sort, such as farming, which is one of our biggest businesses in California. What do you value that land at? And valuing land is difficult. Speaking to somebody who grew up in Nebraska, if you want to see the most popular PhD thesis theme for agriculture economists all through the Midwest, how do you price farmland? And there are huge, huge differences in how you do it. Then we have a concept called highest and best use. Let's say we have somebody who is really interested in preservation and not allowing land to develop And so they have some land that they own and they want to keep it as it has been used. Either, shall we say, responsible farming, the type that can keep going forever, as opposed to doing farming that would make a lot more money, but really empties out resources. There are, for example, some very, very thirsty crops, such as cotton or walnut, that require huge, huge amounts of money in terms of what they're going to pay for water in order to grow anything. And this has been a problem since California's unique view of water rights has come in. And so are we going to value it, these lands, these farmlands that are being used for sustainable agriculture? Are we going to value land that has been put aside as a preserve for what they're being used for? Or are we, because we are short of money, and we, the voted governing board of the city, the county, the state, whatever, we are going to value that at its quote highest and best use, which is what it's worth if it's developed to the max. I could go on, but these are some of the types of issues that we get into. And these are part valuation issues, as in what is the base of the tax we're going to apply, which will be in dispute for years, if not decades to come, if this would go through, and some of which are directly contrary to a number of public policy themes that many of us hold very dear. So this is this is opening up Pandora's box on steroids. And it would take years before we even begin to understand how it would work in the real world. Thank you. I feel much better now.
Awesome. So like just go
You're
ahead.
absolutely right. By the way, if the state of California disagrees with your assessment of your stated assets, they will impose a 40% penalty on that differential, which is, some would say, excessive. So you hit the nail on the head. This is exactly why taxing unrealized gains and paper assets is really just a total Trojan horse, and you're opening up a huge can of worms.
Yeah, the Bolsheviks thought this was a good way to go. Get rid of the capitalists, get rid of the bourgeoisie, etc. And their economy was stuck going nowhere for decades. So this is the type of thing a socialist with no knowledge of history would think was a good idea. Or someone really, some of these are so bad, you look at it and you wonder if there's some foreign influence where people who hate America are trying to destroy America by doing away with the people who have made such a difference. I'm certainly not going to claim that every billionaire is a wonderful person, and everyone who's ever made $1 billion or $5 billion or $10 billion has been just spotless overall in what they've done. But even the worst of the worst, you can make a strong case that they've done more good than bad. Well, not absolutely all, but many of them, even at the far end of the scale. Thanks again. Feel much better now.
Awesome. So just to, if I can, just to kind of summarize the last chunk here for folks, into a couple of key points. Number one, just mechanically, if this thing passes, everyone on this call will have to state to the government of California what your net worth is. Point number two, there are a lot of things, as Tom was alluding to just now, there are a lot of things where we don't necessarily know exactly how to value them. Point number three that Mason made, and if the state disagrees with you, the state wins and you get penalized, even if it's things where we don't know for sure like how to value them. Let me just throw in point number four, which I don't think has come up yet, which is there have been some other countries that have tried this, including several in Europe, and most of the ones that have tried it have walked it back because it was a disaster. So it's not like this is some new thing and nobody knows if it works or not. Like it's been tried and almost everybody's walked it back. So let's go to Gina.
So I've been through 3 IRS audits, one that took 4 years.
Oof.
Basically destroyed my company. So anyone who thinks that this billionaire's tax is a good thing, because I'm nowhere near a billionaire, and I had to deal with this. And that's why page 26 of the legislation allows the legislators, once it passes, to modify it in any way that furthers the purpose of the legislation, which means they are going to come down to the working middle class as soon as the billionaires have left California. And what scares me is more and more of these will pop up because there will be special interests like the SEIU that will need money, not just for healthcare. And I'm not saying healthcare is a bad cause, but it's just, we should know what the monies are going to specifically. And it's kind of an open-ended thing because I read it and it said the first things are to administrative costs. Okay, what are the administrative costs? Right? And that could be pensions, that could be payroll, that could be a lot of things. And it's so open-ended that it is scary as someone who has started reading the legislation where most people don't. I mean, they're using division like they did with 2020 Proposition 19, where they said the wealthy East Coast investors. And now they're saying, well, there's, the billionaires. So they're just stoking division, but it's going to get rid of the middle class.
It will eventually hit the middle class. The political forces behind it will force that. It's a clever strategy to make it about billionaires now, to open the door to it, and then once the door is open, to then push it all the way it needs to go. Like the billionaires thing isn't gonna be enough. Like they'll have to lower the threshold, and how far the threshold goes, who knows? But the pressure will always be to push it down, not to raise it. Let's see, we have any other questions?
By the way, I just posted the list of the San Mateo tax measures that are going to be on the ballot in November.
Awesome, thank you for doing that. We'll take it on our side here to take a look at each of these. Great. Awesome. Do we have any other questions for Mason? General comments? Gina?
So basically, Mason, in all the anti-billionaires tax, I know that the billionaires trying to put ballot items on to oppose the billionaires tax. Those didn't make the ballot.
They did make the ballot. This Taxpayer Protection Act, is one of them. But we can't really take anything for granted, and we really do need to defeat this. So I think we're like leaving no stone unturned, making sure that we defeat this measure on its face. Because even just the discussion of it is, freezing investment in California. And so, we need to stop this in its tracks, basically, regardless of how the other propositions go.
All right. Tom?
Just quickly, Mason, thank you for this fine presentation and all the good work you're doing to try to defeat this idiocy. This has so many incredible negatives that we could have a 2-day seminar by experts, and we still couldn't begin to finish all of the things that will go wrong and could possibly go wrong and probably will. So please, please, please vote against this strongly and encourage everybody to vote against it.
Yeah, it's
Otherwise,
really,
the California way of life is not going to be around very much longer.
yeah, it's really important that you talk to people you know. Like the single most powerful lever for voting is the conversations you have with people. And most people don't know, most people don't pay attention. So you can have a lot of influence in your circle. If we all of us do that, that's how we win this thing. Let's go TW and then San. Oh well, lots of folks. Let's go TW first, and then San will be next.
I want to again thank Mason and all those that are on the call. The center of gravity of this election coming up is affordability. It just everything costs too much, and there's actually several statewide propositions, that affect affordability. And you can go up and ask anyone, what do you think about the cost of living in California? And most of them are not going to be happy. And, if you can say, if, you can influence this by, voting to oppose this measure, and there's some other measures you could look at it as well. So it's something I think everyone has in common, is that they agree that it's not affordable. Everything costs too much, and we need to, take some action. Now, a lot of people will say, well, I'm not going to vote. It just doesn't make any difference. Well, make it personal. Say, well, just do it for me. Mm-hmm. And I think, making the election personal, is going to drive the vote up. If we drive the vote up and people realize the affordability and the cost of living, I think we can be successful. Thank you.
All right, let's go San and then Mark Jaffe.
Yeah, hi, thank you. Hey, question about the yes on 43.
Mm-hmm.
What is the marketing campaign? And where I'm coming from is I am already seeing people, sort of the vote no on any tax sort of mentality. It's people know, okay, vote no, don't want tax, vote no. And so what I'm starting to see is, I don't know if this is intentional or if this is just pure confusion. People are saying on social media, vote no, because, vote no is equivalent to no on tax. But in this case, it's the reverse. It's no, it's kind of like the Prop 13, excuse me, Prop 19. So I foresee people who intend to want to save Prop 13 will vote no, but really in this case, no is yes. Am I making sense? Because I am seeing this on social media, and sadly, people vote on, social media, and social media doesn't have a high mark for accuracy. And I don't know what HGATA is doing, other large groups, because it's out there. I mean, it is the confusion, purposely or not, is already out there. So can anyone speak to that?
That is
Yeah,
a very, very good.
I'll just say,
Go ahead,
I'll
Mason.
just say real quick that with a loaded ballot, it does make it more likely for folks to vote no. That's kind of that's something that's out there in the ether, and so it's probably one of the reasons why a scaled back version of this was ultimately made the ballot, because there were still some concessions they were able to get by scaling it back. But passing it, like, look, this was actually put on the ballot by voters. The billionaire's tax was put on there by this cottage industry of signature gatherers, standing outside of grocery stores and just talking, not really giving people the fine print on this initiative. But Local Taxpayer Protection Act was really put on the ballot by the voters and the people who support Howard Jarvis. And so don't underestimate that voting bloc, and that people that they have been trod on time and time again, and to your point, California is just getting more and more expensive. I do think that, affordability will be the big theme in this election. So I think that makes 43 compelling for voters regardless of how loaded it is.
I think you're missing my point. The average voter does not read and is not educated. I don't know how more direct I can be. It doesn't matter if you have a PhD. Some of the worst voters are the most educated because they don't read and it's confusing. It's backwards. Yes, well, I assume many on this call would like yes on 43. But the average person will probably want yes on 43, but they're going to vote no because it's backwards. Do you know what I'm saying? There has to be massive education. I see somebody nodding and saying yes, yes. It is confusing.
And if
Unless you're in this world and deal with it all the time, your average person does not get it. And it has nothing to do with how many letters are after your name. They don't read and understand. Yes, in this case means yes, not no.
And I'll speak to that, San. We know that Prop 19 was very deceptive. And we as the voters have started to become more educated. And it requires the public to educate ourselves and to educate others, like Tom was saying, and others, right? And the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association radio station said that once they get the number, which they now have, they'll start putting out yard signs. And even with the Fixed Prop 19 group, that's what we're working on too, is getting out yard signs to educate people. Because how many people can actually talk to how many people? That's the question, right? And it's very difficult. We've got 20 million people plus to convince. And you're right that people are kind of lazy. They don't want to read it. And they trust the titles and summaries. And we've learned that that's not right through Proposition 19. So education is going to be it. Word of mouth is going to be it. Yard signs, HJTA swears by it. They're like, it's the cheapest way of getting the messaging out. And so anybody who wants a yard sign, as soon as it's out, please let us or HJTA know, and we will get it out, just like we did with Prop 5. I think Shift was instrumental in making sure that the yard signs got out. I had a bunch, Tom Rubin had a bunch, a whole bunch of people in different counties. So we need to magnify that across the state. And hopefully that will create awareness that yes on 43.
Awesome. Thank you, Gina. Yeah, I think just to echo that, making sure you get a yard sign, I think contributing to that specific campaign for, I think HJGA is going to be leading that, just to make sure that there's enough resources to also not just do the yard signs, but maybe do some other stuff as well. But just, I guess, basically theme is control what you can control, which is definitely talking to everyone you know, definitely getting the yard sign, and if you can contribute in any way to some of the larger kind of marketing efforts, then awesome, do that too. But like the two things you can do that cost basically $0 are tell everyone in your network and get one of those yard signs and put it out there prominently. Let's go to Mark Jaffe and then Ron.
To Sam's point, I think it's very important that trusted organizations put out ballot guides and even just postcards that list the suggested position on each ballot. And if people trust those organizations and they don't want to spend a lot of time thinking about each ballot measure, they can just vote that slate of positions that the organization has. That Contra Costa Taxpayers Association will be doing that. We're going to take a position on every state and local issue, and then we're going to put that in the hands of our members and anyone who wants to listen. On that also point of not necessarily voting no on everything, Mason, maybe we should spend a little time educating people on this call about propositions 41 and 42, both of which would actually act as blockers. So if the billionaire tax got over 50% and either 41 or 42 also got over 50% at a higher percentage, that would effectively prevent the billionaire tax from being implemented. Are you familiar with those? Do we lose them?
But it's a good point.
I think we lost them.
Why not?
Should I elaborate?
Yeah,
Gus?
go ahead. Yeah, go ahead and elaborate.
Go
Okay,
for it, Mark.
Proposition 41 requires audits of programs funded by new state special taxes. And I forget exactly, I have a constitutional amendment requiring pre-election audits of programs that would receive funding from a statewide special tax initiative and recurring audits of programs funded by special taxes enacted after January 1st, 2026. It also prohibits new state taxes enacted after that date from excluding their revenues from an existing voter-approved state spending limit, including taxes on the same ballot. So basically, because I think the Proposition 40 operates probably outside of the GAN limit. Proposition 41 would shut it down. And then Proposition 42 requires audits prohibits new state personal property and retroactive taxes. Well, that one clearly contradicts 40. So you can see how that one, which also would protect those of us who are worth less than $1 billion from this kind of wealth taxation, would be really important in terms of getting people to be more aware of them and voting yes on them. And again, to Sam's point, yes, I think it's very concerning that people would just vote no on everything, not knowing what the consequences of these different ballot measures are.
But
Awesome.
Mark, if I may comment on your trusted source, unfortunately for many, the trusted source was the Republican voter guide. And for Prop 19, they abstained. And that has hurt us significantly since. And surprisingly, the progressives were against Prop 19. So you do have to do your own research. I would not rely just upon a trusted source. I think cocoa tax is fantastic. I will say I've always fallen in line with what you guys do. But like I said, you have to be careful of the trusted source because it's left up to interpretation of maybe a board. And that board may have influence. So just FYI, I know we all want an easy, tell me how to vote. Just tell me how to vote. But we have to live with the consequences of those decisions. Thank you.
Yeah. Hey, Mark, real quick, you mentioned GAN limits, and so that's a little inside baseball. You want to quickly just tell everybody what a GAN limit is?
Hey, really getting to my really getting to the limits of my knowledge. Tom Rubin may know this better than I do, but I believe that there's a limit that was set by a previous ballot initiative all the way back in the 80s that limits the amount that the state can spend. And I think that I think the billionaire tax operates outside of that.
Yeah, Paul Gann, who is the partner of Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association, is the author of the GAN limit. And when I was fighting to fix Prop 19, Phil Ting said, we need to get rid of this artificial ceiling of spending. And the problem with that is that once they get rid of it, it's not like the state writes, prints money. So then it's like the only way for them to increase revenues is through taxation. If they have an excess, they're supposed to give it back to the taxpayers or put it towards the schools or put it in the rainy day reserve fund. And I think we did see it during COVID happen. It hasn't happened again since.
Thank you. Let's go to Ron. Go ahead and unmute yourself, Ron.
Right. Okay. So I'm Ron's wife. I'm Emily. I'm using his computer because I lost the voice function. So to me, there are two centers of gravity in the coming election. The first one is clustering around the closing of the upland tax loophole. Do you know the upland tax loophole of 2017? Is it familiar to you?
It's not familiar to me, so
Okay, it is actually a story. Let's call this is the Upland story. So it all started at Upland 9 years ago, and that was the introduction on the stage of this new actor, which is called Citizen Initiative. So everything to do with the Citizen Initiative is suspect. We have to trace it back to the smoking gun. And because they introduced Citizen Initiative and elevated it and said that if something is connected with a citizen initiative going out to collect signatures, it somehow enjoys special rights. And then it was started by the Supreme Court of California, and it was the government attorneys pushed the envelope and pushed it so that it became a really big loophole. And that is why we have all these taxes passed very easily using so-called voters. And there is so much emphasis on collecting of signatures, and it is also like propaganda. We collected so much signatures. So the first thing to question is when people say we collected so many signatures, question it. It's not the people, it's the government or government-related bodies like the transit agencies. So to go back to the center of gravity, my first center of gravity is to link two measures. One is Prop 43, the other is the $14 billion transit tax. So Prop 43 is the attempt to close this loophole. So definitely yes. But then we have to warn people not to be fooled by people who want people to vote no. And if there is enough confusion about anything, people will vote no. And where does the confusion come from? It comes from the Attorney General controlled title and summary language. Are we familiar with this? Because when I talk to people, they nod knowingly when I say, sometimes you don't even know whether it's a yes or no when you think you know the issue. And it's because the Attorney General has such sway over the language, and they have honed this skill so very successfully that smart people are fooled by it. And it started like 10 years ago. And you can point to the prime example, the poster child is the Prop 19 of 2020. So I would go out and educate people. I would start with the Upland story. I would always call it a story. I would not say Upland case because it was a court case and people's eyes glaze over when you talk about lawsuits. So that is what is going to make things easier to understand is why we have to vote yes to 43, because this loophole has been around for 9 years and a lot of people didn't even know it. So to close the loophole, if they know it traces back 9 years ago, it's long overdue to close it, then they will know how they need to vote yes. Then what about the 14 billion transit tax? The 14 billion transit tax is the culmination of the loophole. It got bigger and bigger. The local taxes got bigger and bigger until you have this massive 14 billion tax. Should it pass at 50%? Should a $14 billion tax pass at simple majority of 50% when the Constitution said 2/3? And then people don't understand also, oh, it's so hard to pass if you want one rule for all, the 2/3 rule, whether it's proposed by government or whether it's proposed by the citizens. Now, then the government wouldn't have enough money. Don't worry, because general taxes pass at 50%. And that is something the government is going to hide from the ordinary voter and say, you're stopping government from functioning. So that is the first center of gravity, is to say yes to 43 and no to the transit tax. Because the transit tax, there are a million problems with it. You can do the technical part, it's like the people they hired increased in number when the ridership fell. All these things that the taxpayer associations are very good at. You can attack it from that, but I will just bypass all that and say it uses the loophole. We have been fooled. So that is the first cluster.
Awesome.
The second cluster, the second center of gravity, is the billionaire tax, or you can say the anti-billionaire tax. And then what will counter it is not Prop 43, it's the audit. Because every time they say they promise to audit, it's a fake promise because it's insider's audit. And this audit is different because it puts it in the Constitution. And also, I think there are other details to make it have more teeth. So it's the audit with teeth. And then the second thing to counter the anti-billionaire tax is the intrusion into our privacy. It's like once you have your like iris or whatever, what is it? What is it the government wants from me? That they want to get into my total assets, including my IRA. So I think those two are connected, and to trace somebody, Jennifer, I think I know Jennifer from before. I've heard about her. She asked, what will be the antidote? What will cure the anti-billion? What is going to oppose the anti-billionaire tax is the audit, put it into the Constitution, and also the get out of my IRA. Those two are the strong weapons if you vote those, and you can trace it to a certain attorney, Onato. I think the name is Onato. If you trace to, because the billionaires hired him to fight for them and for us.
Awesome. Hey, Rod, I want to switch it over to Gina. She's got her hand raised, but you made some great points in there, and in particular for opposing the billionaire tax. I think one of the most powerful things is just tell people you are now going to have to report your own net worth every time. And it's not just something that affects like a handful of people out there that you don't know. Like it's going to affect you personally.
You might want to say everybody's going to have to open the kimono. That's it. Bottom line.
Yeah.
And people won't like that.
Nope. And they don't know that almost nobody knows that that's part of it. So that's something we can all be helping educate people about. Gina.
And see, that's the thing is, who is responsible for determining right or wrong? I mentioned I was in a 4-year IRS audit. One of the things they audited me on was my mileage. They said, how do you drive so much miles and take so much deduction? As a top real estate broker, how do you think I make my money? And when they want to deny it, they do. They don't care. And I have nothing to say. As far as, Emily's comment on the loophole, we need to be careful. And the reason why is that some of you may have realized that we filed Reclaim Voters' Rights. And the purpose of Reclaim Voters' Rights was to get back what was lost in 2011. And that's the rights of citizens to draft citizens' initiatives, referendums, and vetoes, to overturn any of the bad legislation that these legislators are doing instead of having to wait every 2 years like what we've been doing to fix Prop 19. Now, I caution everybody, because even though I'd like to bring it back, there's actually a very similar ballot that already was started. And interestingly enough, it incorporates the billionaire's tax with it to pay for it. So they're saying reclaim voters' rights, and we're going to have the billionaire's tax to pay for it. The thing is that citizens are not organized enough to use citizens' initiatives, referendums, and vetoes. And so organizations like the unions, and like I said, there's a purpose for unions. I don't want to appear anti-union, but they're very good at organizing to get things on the ballot. And that's why this billionaire's tax was on, right? They could organize, they could pay for it, they could get it on the ballot. But as citizens, we could not. Now you have the billionaires scrambling to do the anti-billionaires tax. And that, you're right, it was Ken O something, Emily, that he was hired by these billionaires to put, I think it was like 6 different citizens initiatives. And that's why I was asking Mason if all of them made it. I know a few of them did, and I wanted to go into the details of that, but I'm glad, Emily, you did go into it. I think Mark did go into it. So please, it's not no on everything, guys. Please research it, okay? And I'm going to turn it back over to everybody.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Gina. Awesome. And yeah, definitely get in touch with Mark Jaffe. I see that for with that with us, Emily. And then awesome. Any other comments, questions? This is a really good talk. I want to thank Mason again for getting us kicked off on it and giving us some great summaries of both of those key ballot initiatives. And thank you to Mark Jaffe for introducing 41 and 42 also. Like there's so much on the ballot this time. That's really going to impact your finances personally. So we're all just going to have to be forces for education in our communities. Zimar's got her hand up. Go ahead.
Yes, I just guess I should mention that I believe Tom, among other people, be at the Save Muni meeting tomorrow night where some of this stuff may be discussed. Also, CSFN is having a meeting where the situations will be discussed as far as the Gas House Cove and our
What is CSFM?
Coalition for San Francisco Neighborhoods.
Okay.
Essentially, I'm just mentioning this in case people are interested. We will be going over the fact that they want to close the only gas on the water gas power gas station in San Francisco right after we had that horrible accident where all of these people who actually came to the aid immediately were probably gassed up at Gas House Cove. And that's going to be a big deal. So anyway, that's ongoing. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Mark. TR?
Yeah, Save Muni is having a debate Monday, not Sunday, Monday night. The meeting will start at 5:30. The debate will probably be a little later, like 6:30, depending on how things go. Just hit the Save Muni website. There will be two topics. One will be the 5-county tax, which I will be talking about. The other one will be the City and County of San Francisco parcel tax to fund Muni and SFMTA.
Awesome. Thank you. So lots of opportunities to like that Save Muni meeting. There's an opportunity there to go in and just make your voice heard if you oppose this transit tax, to just sort of say why, just so that they understand that there is actually like the otherwise they just get one side in the debate basically. And, TR will be there to help argue against, but it'd be great to have some other folks there too. So again, just so it doesn't seem too lopsided, they love to stack the deck in these meetings. It seems like there's overwhelming support for this thing or for whatever thing they're trying to get passed. So it's always important that we have both sides robustly present in these things. So if you can attend that, that's great. Other does Connie Chan have an opinion about the transit tax? I don't know. Maybe I'm not deep enough in San Francisco politics to know if Connie does. But if anybody has insight into that.
Yeah, well, Wiener's the one who brought us all the problems we're dealing with right now, and he's her opposition. So anybody in San Francisco knows to vote for Connie Chan if you want to make a change.
She has a chance.
And also, it's going to make him look bad if he loses, and we need to make him look bad so he'll quit writing these stupid laws and people will quit passing them. The best way to stop Wiener is to stop Wiener. Thanks.
Sorry, can I chime in on this? I have not seen any position from Connie Chan, Libby, on this. And you folks who are supporting her, I think you should be asking. It would be great for her to make a public comment opposing the transit tax. That would just be huge for us if she took that position.
She will not take that position. However, like I said, we have a choice. We either stop Wiener or we don't. So it's kind of like my position is I know all the politicians have to support tax, so I forgive them for that. Okay. That doesn't mean we have to support it, and we have that understanding. But it's a lot of other stuff going on behind, it's like what legislation do they write? Okay. So we know what Wiener does. He's going to do more of it if he goes to Washington. And Connie will not be doing what he's doing in Washington. She'll be doing something different. Anyway, thanks.
Thank you, Mara.
Hi.
Awesome.
Hi.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah, go
marking
ahead.
my calendar for July 21st. Because on July the 21st, the Attorney General will issue the title and summary, and then we'll see whether it's deceptive or not, particularly for Prop 43. And once we have that in hand, then I certainly can start going door knocking. And the thing is, Howard Jarvis' position is this: if the language is not favorable, they will litigate to change it. But historically, they've never succeeded to fight well against the Attorney General.
Would that be
tough
for
to be.
just Prop? Is that just for Prop for
everything? But then we're watching 43 because 43 is a very hard one measure for Howard Jarvis. They gave up their broader measure for this one in the Great Compromise on June 25th at Sacramento. Because at the last minute, the legislators proposed to put it on the ballot themselves. So this is by the legislature, but it is a narrower fix to like stopping the citizen initiative from having a field day. And Howard Jarvis very wisely agreed, and they trimmed down their original measure, which they already collected enough signatures for. And it was a very wise move. But then there's like a lot of twists and turns still.
That's correct. They didn't want to have to deal with ACA 13, which would have been the poison pill. So they removed the retroactivity to basically fight another day on that for the Measure ULA and the upland loophole and things like that.
But the legislature is trying to have their cake and eat it because the person who proposed this compromise was Buffy Wicks. And she said, oh, we cannot afford to have Howard Jarvis win because their measure is so broad that it will repeal all the unfair taxes that were passed in the last decade or so and more, all the exorbitant property transfer taxes. And that is why they all voted unanimously, almost, to have this Prop 43 put on the ballot. But then what happened? Immediately, she turned around and said, don't vote for it. I mean, can you trust a person like Buffy Wicks?
We all laugh. I heard Mark in the background. But here's the thing, guys, is at least it's on the ballot. And if we can stop any tax increases by forcing a 2/3 vote, because guys, keep in mind that even Prop 13 would not pass with a 2/3 vote.
I have one more comment.
Sure.
I got experience working with Gina's group, and several years ago, I heard this person say, oh, Howard Jarvis, that's bad company to keep. And that is why I implore all the other taxpayer protection societies like Contra Costa, etc., to stand forward because you're more neutral. There are people who have it against Howard Jarvis. You are either for or against Howard Jarvis. And it is actually more like strategically wise to have Silicon Valley Taxpayer Association or Cocoa Tax Association stand forward. Howard Jarvis is somewhat compromised, although it's doing an excellent job. I admire those people. And they always use simple language. If I want to use simple language, I go to like what was spoken by the Howard Jarvis speakers, and then I steal phrases from them because they talk the common talk.
Awesome. Thank you. Great. Any other, I know we're at 11:15. Any other comments, questions? This has been a really good, rich discussion. Again, there's just a lot on the ballot this time, and it's a lot to have to process. But this is what we have to do as informed citizens. And we again have to be forces for education because most people aren't going to know. So we want these things to land the way we want them to land. Like we all have to do the work. That's what it boils down to. So, awesome. I think we've got a good talk coming up in August again. Greg, you want to just give us quick? It's been almost an hour and a half since you gave that. Just quickly recap what we've got coming
We
up
have
on deck.
we have a theme we're exploring. Yeah, we have a theme we're exploring. What's pushing cities over the fiscal cliff? What are the factors that are causing so much stress that leads to all these tax increase proposals? Mm-hmm. So we have a speaker named Mark Moses who's going to discuss something that many people haven't really thought about, a major factor pushing cities over the fiscal cliff, and that'll be in our August seminar.
Yeah, like that's going to be good stuff. Just because we need to understand like why are cities always in this place where they
August
need to
15th.
ask. So August 15th
is the Saturday. Yeah.
Awesome. Great. Gina?
And Mark Moses gave an excellent presentation for the California Taxpayers Association Collaborative that meets monthly. So I encourage you all to attend. Another thing is I was talking to a developer just yesterday. Would we like to hear the developer perspective?
Interesting. I think that's, I mean, given how much we talk about housing here, I think getting some developer perspective is I mean, I think it's probably valuable to understand where they're coming from and what they see as the issues and why.
Yeah, because I don't want to be anti-YIMBY. I don't want to be anti-NIMBY. I want us all to work together for solutions. And I think when we stop pointing fingers and we work, towards, what's best for Californians, I think we can do it. And that's why I want to invite even developers and YIMBYs and everybody into our group, if we all agree.
Awesome.
Well, just to give you a little hint on what my wife, who's an architect, has to deal with, in Gilroy, everybody knows what an ADU, auxiliary dwelling unit, is.
Yep.
Yes.
So Gilroy, in order to get by a state law that I guess mandated local jurisdictions not put unreasonable tasks, what Gilroy did is said, okay, you can have an ADU, but if it's over 750 feet, you're going to have traffic impact fees of up to $21,000 for permit purposes.
Wow.
And if it's under 750 feet, then that does not apply. So obviously there's a huge financial incentive not to make it larger, but make it smaller. Mm-hmm. And of course, that if you're going to rent that place out, of course, where's the money going to come to pay those $21,000 fees? It's going to come from the renters, right? And that's just to start the process to build. You've got all kinds of inspections, taxes. It just goes up and up and up and up. Structural engineers, architects, building housing is incredibly expensive. In fact, I think I recently saw a stat that a single family house, something like $130,000 before you built the building.
Yeah.
Ouch. And we wonder why there's a housing problem.
And that's why I think having a developer would be good because, I think recently on the Safe Prop 13, they had unlikely coalitions, they were saying, right? And, maybe those unlikely coalitions is what's going to make things work. And we were talking about impact fees. Is it fair for taxpayers to pick up the cost? It's not. But is it possible for the developers to pick up the cost? In highly expensive cities like San Jose, in Santa Clara, it's very expensive.
Yep.
Awesome.
Could I
Great.
ask just real
Well,
quickly,
yeah,
is there a
go ahead.
place we can get lawn signs on the no on 40 to start this dialogue? I know there are rules that you can't necessarily make your own signs, I think, but would love any insight on that.
I don't think there's any rules on making your own signs, because once they see that it's a homemade sign, that FCC doesn't come after you. However, if it looks professionally done, there was a taxpayers association in the East Bay that they went after for signs, and it ended up that the taxpayer association actually admitted it was them that spent it, and they I think they let them go because it wasn't a huge amount. But as soon as we can get from HJT, I know we will announce that. Mason, I see that you're still on. Will you guys be producing yard signs? Oh, did he fall off? He fell off.
I think he's gone actually.
Okay, he fell off again. Okay,
Yeah.
so I'll ask Mason about yard signs as well, because like I said, page 26, it's going to come down to the working middle class like Prop 19 did.
Yeah. I mean, if
Gina,
you're,
is there, oh, sorry, if there's a way you could snapshot whatever you're looking at, like that section that highlights the fact that the legislation will have the latitude to make any changes without a vote. That's just nuts, and we know it's coming, right?
Well, and that's the problem is from what I'm reading, they keep putting these little things in there that no one even realizes. And somebody said,
Right.
"Oh, that's just common legislature language in case they miss
Yeah.
something."
Well, I think it'd be great though if you could circulate that, just because if you're emailing friends about it, that's spooky, right?
Yeah, I
And
sent it out in the past, but I'll send it out
okay,
again. And
awesome.
it's
Thanks.
ridiculous.
Yeah,
awesome.
great. I appreciate. Thank you.
Yeah, and we'll we'll put out a note to our general list when the when we've got access to yard signs. We'll put that out. So if you're not on our mailing list, get on the mailing list. You can go to our site shiftbayarea.org and
Okay.
get on
Thank you.
our mailing list if you're not already on it. So
It's just so critical we are talking about this now with
yeah,
people.
yeah.
I want a t-shirt that just says no on 40.
Awesome.
And I'm not a billionaire. I'm driving a 2011 Maxima.
Sweet. Awesome, guys. This is a great discussion today. We've got next month's going to be awesome. Like really getting into like what is it that's getting all these cities in trouble. Really understanding what the mechanisms behind that are, because it turns out they wouldn't need all our money all the time if they made some changes to how they do things. So learning a little bit more about that is going to be fun. So tune in on August 15th at 10 a.m. and we will see you guys then. Have a great rest of your weekend.
Thanks.